Every good game allows the player to feel like they're growing with the character they're stepping into, and overcoming the challenges before them naturally. With the knowledge of what has come before, the player's understanding of the game's mechanics, as well as potential weapon upgrades of levels gained, a great tool for showing that growth comes from reprising boss characters, which represent an earlier skill barrier for the player to use all of their tools on what once gave them trouble. We've gathered 15 such examples here. Blade Wolf, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. IF Prototype LQ-84I, otherwise known as Blade Wolf, is the first real boss that Raiden will face down in the delightfully ridiculous Metal Gear Rising, with some quick movements and lightning-fast attacks to challenge the player's understanding of the parry system. But every prototype eventually sees mass production, and versions of Blade Wolf hit the battlefield just a couple of chapters after your first battle. The Doorman, Silent Hill 2. The Doorman has some seriously deep symbolism in the world of Silent Hill 2, with Angela referring to it as Daddy while James just sees some terrible beast. The symbolism of the beast is best not spoiled here, but the terrifying Doorman demands a protracted battle with the shotgun, or a more dangerous rumble with the rifle. Similar monsters appear in the Lakeview Hotel later on, but with more speed and less health. Taurus Demon, Dark Souls. The first real introduction to just how terrifying Dark Souls can be, the Taurus Demon first tries to trample the player atop some castle ramparts, unless they're clever enough to take advantage of how stupid the demon is. It's a long, protracted battle. And later into the game, these demons show up again, sometimes multiple at a time, for a more seasoned player to really feel how they've grown. Blood-Starved Beast, Bloodborne. You never have to go up against the malformed, gruesome, blood-starved beast first found in Old Yharnam, but should you choose to face down the skinned behemoth, you'll get a lot of experience for when the same boss shows up again in later Chalice dungeons and in the Old Hunters DLC. Ymir, Mass Effect 2. The heavily armored anti-infantry mech, Ymir is a tough battle when it first takes on Shepard's squad. Later on, these Norse-named battle mechs are deployed very frequently, usually alongside other similarly named battle machines, such as Loki, in larger-scale battles that the more experienced, heavily armed player can better handle. BRUXA, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Blood and Wine. Showing up as a very late-game enemy in the second Witcher 3 expansion, the BRUXA is the central enemy of an early quest in the expansion, but the sharp-clawed vampire-like women can show up later in the expansion to ruin Geralt's day, with all the same invisibility and harsh attacks that made her so hard in the first place. Bloater, The Last of Us. In a desperate situation trying to escape from marauding bandits through an infected school, the first terrifying encounter with the beefy bloater occurs within a school gym. The imposing figure can hurl spores from a distance, and you want to get the beast circling the bleachers to have the best chance of survival while you desperately put some Molotov cocktails together. Luckily, by the time you run into them 2 or 3 at a time, you'll have found the flamethrower to make short work of them. Kaufman, Max Payne 2. Kaufman commands the fearsome squeaky cleaning company Hitman that Detective Max Payne goes up against within Max Payne 2, as he tries to keep the hitmen away from their high-profile targets. While Kaufman himself goes down in a mid-game gunfight, his men were no joke either and show up as normal enemies later on. Almost Every Boss, Tales of Phantasia. The Tales of series has a legacy that stretches way farther back than the GameCube hit Tales of Symphonia. Originally a Japan-only Super Famicom title, this top-down RPG was one of the first titles in the series, and unlike a lot of games of the time, put in the effort to include full voice acting. With such a strong tale to tell, even minor bosses like Mia, Jameer, and Mars Uldol would show up late in the game, hungry for revenge on your party for earlier embarrassments. Bosses in the second disc, Star Ocean Till the End of Time. Taking your party to the underdeveloped Haida 4, Star Ocean Till the End of Time continues Square Enix's science fiction version of the Tales of series with a fantastic sci-fi spin. The Star Trek-inspired RPG also had its reoccurring villains, with all of the bosses faced on the second disc being reoccurring from earlier in the game, with Lucian and Luther facing down the party multiple times. Almost Every Boss, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. The story of Final Fantasy VII didn't end with Cloud Strife striking down Sephiroth. Crisis Core told the story of Zack Fair, the soldier who would go on to define a lot about Cloud. he would face his fair share of hardships, with a cast of bosses that would hound him throughout the game, such as Angeal and even Sephiroth himself. Neo Shadow, Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. The pureblood Heartless that stands far taller than normal Heartless, Roxas has one of his first battles within The World That Never Was against several of these pitch-black shadows at once. At that point, it takes teaming up with Riku to survive, but later on in the game, they're basically common enemies with a bit more health and tougher strategies. Burrowing Snagret, Pikmin 2. The terrible, burrowing Snagret guards the White Flower Garden in Pikmin 2, waiting for Olimar or Louie to bring the snake/avian predator some delicious Pikmin to consume. Well, the first time it shows up, it's a larger specimen that takes some serious work. They show up much more frequently later on, once you have a larger army to work with. Yellow Ogre, Splatterhouse 3. Hard to believe there was once a time when the Splatterhouse series was considered over-the-top violence. But back in the 90s, during the creation of the ESRB and moral panic over violence, the Splatterhouse series was one of the games that led the charge for more adult gaming. The beat-em-up focused Splatterhouse 3 set a yellow ogre upon the player as an early boss to end a level, but the beefy foes, in typical beat-em-up fashion, were sure to return later on. RASETSU, Ninja Gaiden 2. RASETSU is the imposing leader of the attack team that Ryu Hayabusa takes on throughout Chapter 1 of Ninja Gaiden 2. The aptly named lieutenant of the Black Spider clan transforms into an arachnid form twice the size of the dragon ninja to do battle. It's still Ninja Gaiden 2, so this introductory battle doesn't have any kid gloves on. But later on into the game, when the player reaches the underworld, it turns out that RASETSU wasn't the only spider boss, and many at a time can show up from the shadows to do battle with Hayabusa. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.